Right then folks, let's get this started. This is step one, which is going to be the steering servo and the shift servo and putting it all together. We're going to go through this after we've got the parts off the e-parts tree for all of this, and they're all on there, here and here. We've got some that are for Sanwa ACOMs and some are for Tamiya Futaba. So depending on what servos you've got would depend on which ones you'd use on that. So I'm going to get all the screws that it's asking me to get ready, and as you can see I've lined up all my parts bags. So screw bag A, we need one, so that will be one of those. Screw bag B, a B3, which is one of those, and just lay it on the side. You see it's exactly the same size. And screw bag C, that's easy enough to pick out because that's just that one. A small silver nut, small silver self-tapping, and then in parts bag D, there's one of these rather large. So we've got one of those, one of those, one of those, one of those. So they are the fixings that we need. Just put that to one side, and then we cut off what we need. Now I need, because I'm using Futaba servos, I'll be just using the two over here, which is E12 and E13, which is E12 and E13. I'm going to cut these ones off first using my side cuts. So I'll be using E13, then I will be using E1, of which there are two. So that's one. Two parts, I'll be using E11, which is this one. And E2, which is these two just here. So I'll be just taking one of those and putting that on there. And that is it. The only ones that I'll be looking for now is this one, which is the bull connector, which is in parts bag D, because it says BD, so D is the bag number. Now I'll be looking for E12, so that's for that, and then another E, E1, and then we're looking for E7, which is this one here. E6, which is next to it, of course. And then we're looking for another E2, which is this one just here. So we have all the plastic parts for that, and now we need this little brass ball joint, which is in BE. So that'll be in parts bag E, and that will be one of those. All good so far. So we'll do this one first. So it's asking us to use this. If you look at the orientation of the part there, hold that part like that, the screw and the nut rather fits in there, and then we look for our box spanner. And then because that is captive in there, we can just tighten that up. Excellent. And then of course that goes on top of there. And that is the servo saver, and that just fits in there. And the screw spacer goes in the top, just there, and then that fits in there like that, and that is ready to go on the servo. So that's one done. Make sure you get it the right way up. And then there's the BC6, which goes all the way through, which is this one. Depending on which one you are, I'm having the Tamiya, so it's the BC6 that I'll be using. So that goes in there like that. We'll put this small nut inside that captive recess, finding the ball joint, and just nip that up. No need to over tighten it, and that is your second servo saver ready to go. Now we can't put those on the servos yet because we need to centre them up. Now of course we have 2 screws left over because these 2 are options, so it could be either BC6 or BD2. So we've obviously gone for the BD6 because we're using the Futaba Tamiya connection, so we'll put that back in D, and we will put that back in, what's that one? C. Okay, now to centre the servos up, and let me just set everything up and we'll show you how they work. And now very quickly on to step 2. We are putting these in the mounting brackets, and these pieces are G1, G1, which are over here on the parts tree. We can see that it's parts G here, so I know that it is this one and the one on the other side is just there, and we can see that the hollow profile is pointing upwards, and they go like this. And then we can see the orientation of the servos here. I'll put a picture up here close up of what it is. and we can see that we're in parts bag D, and we need 4 of those. So we go to parts bag D and bring out 1, 2, 3 and 4. And that's number 2. So we'll put these servos in. You can see that the servos only have 1 screw on either side, so we can have that one there like this, put this underneath here. We use one of the screws in, the one towards the center. Okay, do it left-handed, and as if by magic, there it is. So that is how they will look once it's done, according to this picture just there. And that is step 2. On to step 3. So step 3, we need the front cross member, and I think that's the front cross member and the middle. So we have these 2 parts, and we have this one part. This is actually the rear cross member. So number 3 is off. I use these side cuts because it gets very close to the plastic, and if you have just a little nub where they come on, as I've mentioned before, just get a little file and you can just get rid of that. Doesn't take any great effort. Same that one. Good stuff. So that is our parts, and for this section 3 we need from screw bag A 2 black M3 nuts. So get my tweezers and put one there and one there, and we need 4 BF1s, which are from screw bag F. So they will be them. We need 4 of those, so there's plenty of them in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that should do us for that. Right, it's just telling us that for BA1 goes into C3, which is that way. That's the orientation. So I'll get my larger screwdriver, drop that in there. Those nuts are just in there, and then these 2, as you can see, that is the bottom one, goes like this, and this is the top one that just fits over the top. And it just snaps together like this. And then from above we just have the 4 screws. So that's section 3 finished, which was relatively straightforward. Nothing complicated about that. We'll put those to one side and we move on to the chassis, the big bit, the backbone of what this is. So of course we're going to need the chassis rails. Just leave them for a moment and we'll look at the components that we need. We need the front cross member, start at the front. So that's one piece. We have the servos next, which we did earlier. Then we're looking for these parts here, which has an arrow pointing to them. There are 3 the same and they're all called F1. Yeah, just out of reach. So we have F parts, and it has 1 and 1, but we need 3, but we have 2 lots of F parts. So we'll go ahead and we'll chop off 1, 2 and 3 of them. So don't worry if you've got parts left over, because you will always have 1 left over. So we have the 3 of those, 1, 2 and 3. Then we have the centre one, then we have the rear one. And because this is quite a big part, let's chuck that over there, don't need that. It's also asking us to get all these screws out. So screw bag B, let's get screw bag B. We have this one, 1, 2, how many do we need? 4 of those. And then 4 of the smaller BB3s, which are them. So that's 2, 4. Screw bag F. We need 24 of those. And these are mainly self-tappers. So what I'll do is I'll get that, put that on there, and that's the one. So I'm going to put them on this page. So I need 24 of those. So we've got 24 of those from parts bag F, and let's go down to parts bag F. We need 16 of the small bolts. And that is 16 of those. We also need 2 of the PA4 and 2 of the PA5. They're the angled ones and the mainstay. Already got these out. Of course we need these parts here, so get those out. 2 of those, and where's the other one? There it is. So now we have all the parts we need for this. We need 2 F12s, F11s, F10s, F13s, and they are on here. So go back to F parts, these ones for the fuel tanks, which we should just snip off. So that's those 2. And of course they are repeated on the other side. If I get my act together, I'll not be so quick to dispose of these. So that's all the parts we need. So I'm just going to go ahead and tidy all these edges up with the file. Be right back. Okay, right. Let's get to work on this. So we have a small letter here that says left. So obviously this one's going to be the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the protective coating from right, that's how it's going to look. So if we look, there's a slot at this end and a slot at this end, so you know that that is the front. And the first thing I'm going to fit is this front piece. And I'm going to fit that in there. And as you can see on here, it tells you which screws you need. So you need 3 BF1s in each side. So I'm going to go ahead and screw that in there. Quite difficult to do this. Looking at what I'm doing and looking at the camera screen to make sure that I stay in shot, because the last thing I want to do is go out of shot, or this would be completely pointless. So they're all in just a little bit. Right, don't need to tighten them up all the way just yet. As you can see, these bottom 2 here have the servo suspension plates on there. So that's this one and this one, and it has this G6 spacer. So we go back to G parts, turn it over so we can find it. That's not G parts, this is G parts, so we need one of those. I've got a grip of that, what I do is take one out so it's all held together. Put 1, 2 and 3 together. Stick the screw through there. I don't know if I'm going out of shot because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing. So that's that. Take this one out. Put that there. Tilt that up. And make sure they all line up so the screw goes through all of them. These are the 12mm screws because obviously it's going through the thickness of the bracket as well. I'll take that one out because that's an 8mm and I shall put a 12mm in there. Not happy with that one. I don't know what's up with that. What is it? Well, it's a short one, that's why. It needs to be a 12. So we'll stick that one in. That one's better. Feels better already. Excellent. And then we'll do the same with the other side. Put a short one in the top. Concentrate on what we're doing because I'm looking at the screen so we can still see that we are in shot. We're not wandering off into the oblivion. So I'm not going to tighten it all the way up. Put that one on there. Where's the 12? I sometimes find it easier to put the screw through all 3 parts. Like this. And then screw it into position. And then before I tighten it all the way up, I just spin everything around to where it should be. Get another 12mm. And then just tighten those up. Now you might remember that I will be putting a different bracket on the front of this, but for the purpose of this section I will just do it as a stock build. And now you can see that we need the servos in next, and they will be face up. Shift servo is what side is that on? Shift servo is on the right. So we'll slide that away from the end so it sits in there like that. And then we can use, what's this one? 8mm. That's that one. And that's on a slot, so we can adjust the servos. Let me get them screws in. Be back in a sec. Alright, there's the servos in, and if we turn it over, shift servo is at the bottom, steer servo is at the top, so that is how they go on. And the next step is to fit the 3 cross members with the main rear suspension support. Now here's the thing, I need to run wires through the frame for the MFC, so I'm going to use a drill to drill holes in these, and I have a block of wood here. Let's move all this out the way, and I'm going to drill holes through these, and these you can put them either way around in the frame, but they do have an upside and a downside. The upside is this infill here, the bottom has the dip, so just be aware of that. I'm going to get my drill and drill out all the holes, so I'll speed this up. And that is pretty much the drilling done, so it doesn't affect the strength or the structure, and they just have a hole that I can pass the cables through, and the cross member just drilled that hole there. 8mm hole, don't need anything bigger. Any smaller you would have problems passing the lights plug through, so you have to remember you have to pass that lights plug through. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide these in. Remember, I want the holes on the left side and I want the infill piece on the upper side, so simply just slide those in, paying attention getting them the right way, because I have done them before where I thought, oh, I'll put that in the wrong way, and that is a moment that I use colourful language. So those 4 cross members go in, then the rear bumper mount, I'm going to put that in now to hold everything together. I use 4 8mm screws to hold that in, so I'll whiz that in. That's them done. Now we can see where the holes are lined up here, here, that one goes at the back and this one goes just here, and we have 12 screws for the centre cross members, and I'll get to the back one in a second. Let me just whiz those in. So up next we have the centre plate where the rear axles go, and we have 3 bolts on there, and they fit over there like so. So we need the 10mm screws that go in there, another 10mm, and then a smaller 8 in the middle. I will take photos and I'll flash them up on screen so you can see. I don't know if the light's reflecting right on these, but I will get some decent close-up images. That's one side done. Now the other side, make sure it's the right way around. 2 outer ones. Just start the screw. Just start the screw. Another 8mm in there because it's not going through 2 pieces of aluminium. So that's in there. That's in there. And that's in there. And that is how they look. And here you can see the holes here that run through all the cross members, and that's going to take my cable in for the rear lights. Now we have these front shock absorber uprights. They're pretty simple. They are just 6mm screws. Some people say leave these off, but there is no need. No need at all. Because I kind of like to have all the parts on and just nip them up. And remember, don't do them up too tightly because you will strip out the aluminium. I've just put, yeah, they're the right ones. Always check. If in doubt, check, because there's nothing more annoying than realising that you've made a mistake and you've got to strip half the truck down to make it good. So just make sure they're nipped up. So it's starting to take shape. Right, these are the screws we've got left. So now we put the fuel tanks and the step brackets on, and we must make sure that we count the holes in these. So from the front we have 1, 2, 3 holes, 1, 2, 3, then we have 3 holes here, and we can see that we leave these 2 and then put them on here. And the tanks are the square ones, the steps are the square ones, and the fuel tanks are the rounded ones. So we'll start at the front. We'll put one here, and I will just use my fingers just to hold that in place. Another tank. So this one is figure out which one's that. Ah, that one. The middle one of those 3. I can tell because there's 3 holes here and then there's 1 underneath. So it's the one that goes underneath, and then obviously it just mirrors the other side. All very straightforward so far. Stop shaking. Right, I'm going to do the same with the tanks, and the tanks, that one's this one. You can always tell because they do have a screw on the underside as well, so you can't really get them wrong. Mind you, famous last words. I learnt many moons ago that don't always go according to plan. And you're just rushing away and you make a mistake. So they're all pretty loose. Got 4 more of these left. I think I must have only got 12 out, not 16. Oops. Unless there's 4 underneath here. Yeah, I think I did. I didn't get enough out, so I'll just... Christ. Oh. Yeah, don't nip them up until I've got all the bolts in, because if the bolt hole doesn't line up and the other side is tight, it's a bit frustrating having to go back and loosen them off a little bit. So now I'm happy with that, I will just use my fingertips just to nip them up and just put a bit of tension on them. Nothing too serious, they're not holding any great weight. You may notice that the chassis is rocking around a little bit. You think, oh, that's not straight, it's twisted. It's not, it's because it's resting on the servo savers. So, nothing really to be too concerned about, just rocking about on them. If you want to see if it's stable and you've got a flat surface, that is resting on the upright shock mounts, and that looks pretty good. If it is slightly twisted, just slacken the bolts off and redo it. That is step 4 completed.